Hey there! Good morning, afternoon, evening everyone, and welcome back to the Genshin Impact character review series where we take a look at each character. I give my opinions on them, I review them, we talk about artifacts, we talk about weapon skills, everything. It's a review. So, today's character is Fischl. I'm not gonna pronounce her full title because I'm not capable of doing that. So then, Fischl is an electro bow user that is mostly used as an electro support or a physical DPS. She is, in my opinion, a very good character as a sort of like starting opinion. I think she's a very, very good electro support. She basically works like Xingqiu. They both have their pros and cons. If you compare them, of course, Fischl is electro. Electro's reactions just aren't that good right now. So yeah, she does fall very much behind someone like Xingqiu, but she is basically the best electro applicator, mostly single target out there. So yeah, I mean, why don't we get immediately into her kit and see why she's generally considered pretty good. So she's a bow user, so starting off with the auto attacks, she's a bow user. Her normal attacks are pretty much fine, okay quick I would guess, I would say. And yeah, I mean, bow user. As a support, you never attack. As a physical DPS carry, this is the only thing you're doing. It's fine. Of course, charge attack shots are the electro-infused ones, and you also aren't really using them that much, I must say. But yeah, I mean, she's a bow user. There's nothing really interesting, let's say, about her normal attacks. They're just, fine like everybody else's. Then we move on to her skill. So this is, the main point of Fischl. It's not even Fischl herself, it's Oz, her pet crow raven. And yeah, Oz is busted. So the elemental skill summons Oz exactly where Fischl is standing. You deal an initial burst of damage when you summon Oz. It's a good amount of damage, and then Oz stays on the field and just machine guns a singular target with constant electro shots. He attacks extremely quickly, and yeah, Oz is just amazing. And this is where Fischl's continuous electro appliance comes from. Just Oz machine gunning a single enemy. It has a very good duration, and but it also does have a very good, very big cooldown. Although the burst does help with it. We'll talk it in a bit. You can also hold the skill to precisely position Oz, but you never do that. Since you know that Oz just gets summoned exactly next to Fischl, there's no real reason to position him precisely. And also you're gonna be losing time positioning him. You can also, after summoning Oz, you can also reposition him by pressing the skill again, so that will bring Oz back close to Fischl. It can be useful if an enemy, you just summon Oz and an enemy just dashes away. You can, of course, dash as well towards the enemy and resummon Oz if he is out of range. He does actually have a pretty good range, so yeah, but he is single target, and auto-aiming can easily break your combo where you want to target a specific enemy, the big enemy of the group, and then Oz just hits a singular hillator in a corner. I mean, it is mostly auto-targeting on the closest enemy, so if you're, face in front of the enemy you're hitting, well, most likely he will also aim towards that. There is no way to re-target Oz, which, to be honest, could be a thing. I mean, you can give Fischl a talent or something, perhaps a constellation, or just bake it into the skill where hitting an enemy with a charge attack makes Oz retarget. That would be actually a pretty good thing for Fischl to have. But yeah, skill is busted. Skill is extremely good. Busted when it comes to electro application. It's really, really good and very, very much constant damage. Then we move on to Fischl's burst. So it's actually a very interesting burst. So Fischl takes on flight upon Oz, or turns into Oz basically, and she moves in a very she moves very quickly, and at the end of this flight duration, Oz is summoned where you were last time. It's pretty good. Of course, it still summons Oz, so it has the same strength basically as the skill, and since the skill is very good, then this is automatically very powerful. If it's mostly used to stall the cooldown of the skill. The cooldown and duration are very much like 50-50, closely. And so you use your skill, Oz's duration ends, and then you use your burst, and then when Oz's burst duration ends, you can use your skill again, and it's this continuous cycle of summoning Oz. And yeah, the thing though about this burst is that compared to every other character, you do not gain any invulnerability frames. So you can easily get hit while you're in this flight form. And yeah, it can be a very big problem, because usually your brain, of course, knows to use a burst to dodge attacks. With Fischl, you can't do that. It could be possible to lower the flight duration and give invulnerability frames while that's happening, but they didn't do that. They don't seem to want to buff this, to change this, so it stays like this. The only burst right now that doesn't give invulnerability frames to a character. But yeah, as said, it's mostly used to refresh Oz's duration. Your skill will change to the repositioning one, but the cooldown will still tick down while this is going. So you burst, Oz is summoned where you last were. You can also just switch to another character that will end the burst early and summon Oz where you are. But yeah, you can also reposition him using the elemental skill, since it will change, as we said. Yeah, as for team compositions that Fischl usually gets put at, it's mostly a taser comp, as it's called, where constant electro application is needed. This goes, with characters like Child, Kokomi, or Xingqiu if you're not using him as a support, or to a pyro character. Just a Hydro user that can apply Hydro in a good AoE. And yeah, Fischl is there to summon Oz and just constantly shoot Electro and proc Electro charge. That's why it's called a taser. She can also fit into Superconduct, which needs, of course, Electro to work. To proc Superconduct, of course, with Cryo and Electro, and you get the physical resistance down. So usually with someone like Eula, Razor is also Electro, so he doesn't necessarily need Fischl, or of course her own self. She can also play a physical DPS carry, so she works in a Superconduct comp. She does generate a good amount of particles because of the constant reactions, and her second Ascension talent ties into these reaction comps, especially electro charged, because whenever you trigger an electro reaction with Oz will actually bring down a thunder to the enemy that had the reaction caused upon them. So that's why she fits very well into Electrocharge, because it's constant. You constantly trigger Electrocharge more than Superconduct or other reactions. She unfortunately doesn't really go on Overload, because Overload itself launches enemies backwards. So you unfortunately need to chase enemies, and having Oz constantly throw the enemies away from you, it doesn't do it. For Swirl, if you're using something like, Kazuha, Venti, Oz will just constantly apply Electro. You'll easily be able to swirl Electro if you want. But yeah, it's mostly Electro-charged Taser comps or Superconduct for a Cryo physical carry like Eula or her own self. For artifacts that go for these team comps, the most popular one is Thundering Fury. It gives extra electro damage, which Oz likes, and then whenever you trigger, it increases reaction damage. So if technically Fischl is causing the reactions, Electrocharge, Overload, Superconduct, they do extra damage. Also, whenever you trigger such a reaction, you reduce the cooldown of the elemental skill. So with Thundering Fury, there's more room for error when it comes to managing your skill cooldown, as it will be very much lowered, so you can constantly have Oz from the burst, Oz from the skill, and as we said, the classic cycle. You can use Thunder Soother in a Swirl Mono Electro comb for the extra damage against electro characters. That can also work, but it's not that common to see because there just aren't that many mono electro teams. She mostly goes on Taser, as said, and Superconduct, so Thundering Fury helps very well. Emblem of Severed Fate, which increases burst damage, same with Noblesse, unfortunately do not work. The burst Oz that is summoned has the stats of the elemental skill, and he does count as an elemental skill, so unfortunately you can't increase burst damage to increase Oz's damage from the burst. Else it would have been fine to work, but unfortunately it doesn't. You might hear people recommend a set called the Gambler. It's a set that only goes up to 4 stars, and it increases your skill damage, and when you kill opponents, you reset skill cooldowns. Now the thing is that while the skill damage and reset on cooldown is nice, first of all, the stats unfortunately do not make up for the skill damage. It's better to have 5-star artifact stats than the extra 20% skill damage, and also the whole resetting the skill cooldown. Just using Thundering Fury will lower the cooldown enough to once again just go through your burst and skill cycles, so resetting the cooldown just isn't as useful. So I would say, the Gambler set on Fischl is, sort of like a copium set, as one might call it. For physical carry, Fischl, just go for a 4-piece Pale Flame. Extra physical damage, and then the 4-piece set effect is that whenever your skill hits an opponent, you gain stacks. At 2 stacks, you gain extra attack. And since Oz is always on the field, even on a physical DPS, Fischl, he always deals damage as an elemental skill, and you always have the Pale Flame effect on you, so it's really good. Else, if you can't farm Pale Flame, you haven't gotten yourself a 4-piece Pale Flame, 2-piece Bloodstained, 2-piece Pale Flame for the maximum amount of physical damage, again, if you don't have a 4-piece Pale Flame. But yeah, that is it for artifacts. Let's move on to weapons. So, bow user, and there are quite a few weapons that Fischl can use. For support, let's start with some free-to-play options. There is the Prototype Crescent, the Hamayumi, and the Compound Bow. The Compound Bow only usable on a physical damage build because it gives physical damage bonus, and its effect is based on normal and charge attacks, so Fischl likes it as a physical damage carry. The Prototype Crescent is meh. It has an okay base attack, it gives attack percent, so on support or sub DPS Fischl it's fine, but its effect wants you to do charged attacks, so you can swap in Fischl, do a charged attack, and then summon Oz because you got the buff. So that can work. Prototype Crescent can easily work, though I wouldn't go full on refining it to 5. There's the Hamayumi, as we said, which is the Inazuma Bow. It has a lower base attack than the Prototype Crescent, but compensates with extra attack percent in its subset. It's fine, but its effect is also tailored towards normal attacks and charge attacks, which Fischl doesn't use, Fischl uses them as a physical DPS carry, but the Compound Bow is better at that. So for support Fischl, the stats are fine, but the Prototype Crescent with its better base attack is, I would say, better. It also gives attack, as said, if you hit charge attacks, while the Hamayumi does not give you any sort of attack buff. It's only normal attack and charge attack damage, so it doesn't help Oz. So, and there's also the Black Cliff Warwolf, which is the sort of less free-to-play-ish option. it's very good, I would say, on Fischl. It has very good base attack 44, and it gives a very good amount of crit damage. Now, for a physical build, I would guess that the compound bow might rank higher, especially at high refinements. It might rank higher in damage compared to the Black Cliff. But the Black Cliff can help you can help you balance your crit damage and crit rate, since you do care about that in a physical carry. But also for support, if you care about Oz's damage, Fischl's damage as a sub DPS or third position support, then you can easily pick up a Black Cliff Warbow and boost Fischl's damage. The effect where you need to defeat an enemy to gain stacks and increase your attack, if Fischl is doing a very, very good amount of damage and is getting some kills, then the effect will work, but it's very inconsistent. On a physical damage Fischl, it is more likely that you will get these stacks. So at high enough stacks, I would guess that the Black Cliff may outdamage the compound bow. But, on places like the Abyss where there's one enemy, like a boss, you won't get these stacks, so most likely the compound bow will outdamage the Black Cliff. It's still a very good option for both a support Fischl and a physical damage Fischl. You might not have the billets to craft a compound bow, so just wasting your Star Glider on the Black Cliff can go on Fischl. You can also use it on other bow characters if you have them. The Favonius Warbow, it's fine. It has a low base attack and it gives energy recharge, and its effect is about generating energy. Here's the thing, if you proc a lot of reactions, especially something like Electrocharge through Oz, you will generate a lot of energy naturally. So grabbing energy recharge through either a Sands of Time, a Sands of Eon, or from general substats, you can easily have your burst up. You can grab yourself a second Electro character in the composition that has Fischl, like Beidou, Lisa, I guess you can use her, Razor can go in there, and you will generate particles for each other, so you most likely will have the ultimate up. So Favonius Warbow is fine, but once you get used to Fischl and you know your team composition well, you might just start having your burst always ready when you need it. So you may ditch the Favonius Warbow for something more damage heavy. Then there's Rust. So Rust I would only recommend on physical damage. It has an okay base attack, more than the compound bow, and it gives a good amount of attack percent. The thing is, it increases normal attack damage by 40% naturally, so it's very good, and it decreases charge attack damage, that's fine. With Fischl and a physical damage Fischl, you're most likely always just doing your normal attacks because that's your only way of dealing physical damage, and the Rust, especially at high refinements, will easily out DPS the compound bow. And naturally on something like R1, maybe yes, maybe no, but I think that Rust is generally just a very good option. Again, you're always normal attacking, the extra attack percent helps Fischl deal more damage through Oz, which just adds up. So yeah, Rust, very good. You're not using charge attacks, so the damage reduction does not matter. Rust, very good option. Sacrificial Bow, it's not good. It has a very high base attack for sure, and it gives energy recharge. But as said, it's very similar to the Gambler set. You don't need to reset Oz's cooldown. And not only that, because of the skill being replaced by the repositioning skill, you might end up not... Actually, I don't know if it exactly works with Oz. I don't know if because you replace the skill with the repositioning skill, I don't actually know if the Sacrificial Bow can work on Fischl. But in general, even if it works, I wouldn't recommend it. You do not need a second skill Oz. The Very Decent Hunt, very, very fine. has an okay base attack and it gives crit rate. So like the Blackcliff bow, if you care about your support Fischl damage, you can use it to balance out your crit rate, crit damage stats. For a physical damage build, it helps with crit rate, and its effect unfortunately doesn't buff your normal attack damage. It generates this cyclone, which Fischl just isn't a like AoE DPS like someone like Child. Child likes the grouping up of enemies, while Fischl can't exactly utilize it very much. So the Viridescent Hunt mostly used for stats. I would guess that the Compound Bow and Blackcliff might rank higher than the Viridescent Hunt, but if your stats just aren't that good, then you can grab it for the extra crit rate. The Windbloom Ode is fine. It's limited to playing, during the Windbloom Festival, which was on like 1.5. Was it 1.5? Was it 1.4? It's fine. You get the free R5, it has an okay base attack and it gives elemental mastery, so it forces you to play something like an electrocharged comp on a support Fischl, and then its effect is pretty fine. After using your elemental skill, you gain extra attack. I'm not 100% sure if Oz snapshots. So snapshots means that the skill's damage, Oz's damage, will be based on the stats Fischl has when she casts her skill. If it doesn't snapshot, it means that if you buff Fischl after casting the skill, then Oz will deal more damage. I do not know if this attack buff if Oz snapshots. So Windbloom mode can be fine and cannot be fine. If you have it and you're doing a high electrocharge comp like Taser, you can easily use it and buff your electrocharge damage through the elemental mastery. Else you can easily go for the prototype Crescent, and of course if you don't have the Windbloom mode. There's also the Alley Hunter. So Alley Hunter is only usable on a support Fischl. It has a very high base attack, but it does have a lower attack percent for that. The effect is that whenever your character is off the field, so not active on the field, they gain stacks that increases their damage up to 20%. And when they swap into the field, after 4 seconds on the field, that damage will slowly go down until it reaches 0%. So the Alley Hunter can only be used on a support Fischl. And if I'm honest, I think the bow was actually made with support Fischl in mind, because if you look at the effect, it actually has like crow feathers surrounding your character. But yes, since Fischl never is on the field, she only comes out for 1 to 2 seconds to use her burst or skill, she always has that extra 20% attack, 20% damage. And with a high base attack, fine attack percent, this means that Fischl deals a lot of damage. If you're fine on energy generation in order to cycle through burst and skill, I easily recommend Alley Hunter. It will boost your Oz's damage a lot compared to other bows. There's also the Mitternachtswalz, which is the specifically made and designed after Fischl bow. It's made for physical damage Fischl though. It has an okay base attack 42 and it gives a lot of physical damage. Its effect is also made for Fischl, where normal attacks increase elemental skill damage, and then elemental skill attacks increase your normal attack damage. In a normal physical damage build for Fischl, you do care a bit about Oz's damage, so it's fine to have this effect where each other increases each other's damage. So yeah, if you're using a physical damage build for Fischl, then you can easily use her own weapon, else the Alley Hunter is better for that. Then we get on to 5 stars, or actually there's one more. There's the bow that is coming right around the corner with the Huta weapon banner. It's the Inazuma weapon. It's Moon's Moon. Is that what it's called? I think the site that I'm using hasn't updated the name. But okay, let's take a look at it. Very good base attack and very good attack percent. It's exactly like Ally Hunter in its stats. The effect is that it increases burst damage based on your energy that is needed for the burst. So since it increases elemental burst damage, then unfortunately it doesn't work on Fischl. Also, there's the stringless, of course, which I didn't see in the list of weapons here. So the stringless, a very, very good option on support Fischl. Okay, base attack 42, it gives a lot of elemental mastery, and its effect increases your elemental skill and burst damage by 24% on R1. Stringless, you can easily, of course, refine it. It's the go-to weapon also for support Fischl, where you gain elemental mastery for your taser combs, and you have that extra skill damage through its effect. It most likely ranks at the top at high refinement compared to Ally Hunter and other bows. At low refinement, I don't know how much I would use it. At R1, I would rather have the Ally Hunter extra damage overall. But stringless, extremely good at high refinements for support Fischl. Then, of course, finally we move on to the 5 stars. First, Skyward Harp. Skyward Harp is a stats stick. So both for support Fischl, who cares about Oz's damage, and for physical damage Fischl, the Skyward Harp is extremely good. Highest base attack with 48, gives a good amount of crit rate, gives crit damage, balances out your stats, it's generally good. Is it better than the stringless? No, in very high reaction comps. In a taser comp, I think the elemental mastery might be better compared to Skyward Harp. But because of Skyward Harp's stats, it's just insane. So it might actually be worth more to go for Skyward Harp compared to something like the Stringless or Ally Hunter. For physical damage, 100% recommended. Amos's Bow. Amos's Bow is fine. It has good base attack with 46, gives a good amount of attack percent, and it increases your normal and charged attack damage passively. Then it is about normal and charged attacks when you fire them, as it says. So for physical damage Fischl, Amos's Bow is very good. As said, good base attack, gives attack percent, and the effect works on Fischl. You know, passively normal attack damage increase, and then you can use a bit of the effect where, you know, like the longer the arrow is in the air, the more damage it does. It works on both normal and charged attacks, so physical Fischl uses it. For support Fischl, the stats are nice. The extra attack and base attack are nice, but I would guess that other 4-star bows could rank higher than Amos's Bow. Elegy of the End. It's a worse stringless at some occasions. It has okay base attack, 46. It gives energy recharge, which if you have problems, as said, you could use it. But with many reactions in a party or other Elector characters in the party alongside Fischl, you might just over recharge on your burst. So it's fine-ish. Its effect passively gives you 60 elemental mastery, so that is nice for reaction comps. And then whenever your elemental skill or burst hits, so Oz, whenever he hits an opponent, you gain a stack of Sigil of Remembrance. At 4 stacks, you give a buff to your party where it increases their elemental mastery and attack. It's very good. For taser comps, as said with Child or other Hydro users, this is very good. The extra elemental mastery is nice, and then also buffing Childs or Kokomis or whoever is doing reactions, like even Beidou, their elemental mastery and attack will result in a lot of damage. So in general, Elegy of the End is good. If you care more about Fischl's personal damage, a high refinement stringless will end up being better than Elegy of the End, since Elegy of the End is also hard to get. At high refinements, where Elegy of the End just gives you insane amount of elemental mastery, it's the same as the stringless. But as said, Elegy of the End is very much a support weapon that buffs your party. It will deal okay reaction damage through Oz because of the elemental mastery, but it is very much tailored to buff your whole party instead of also increasing Fischl's damage. Thundering Pulse is fine. It has good base attack, 46, and gives a lot of crit damage. It increases your attack by 20% passively, and then through different scenarios you gain stacks that increase your normal attack damage. For support Fischl, Thundering Pulse can only be used for stats. For the extra attack percent that you getting passively, the base attack is nice and the crit damage is nice. I would guess that once again High Refinement Stringless might rank better than Thundering Pulse, but the stats on Thundering Pulse are very, very nice. As for the effect though, it is good for a physical damage Fischl, since she uses normal attacks. If your normal attack deals damage, if you cast your elemental skill, and if your energy is below 100%, you gain stacks, and that, as said, increase your normal attack damage. Physical Fischl loves the Thundering Pulse. It fits her very well. Then we have Polar Star that just came out. It has good base attack, 46, so only Skyward Harp has 48 out of the 5-star bows, and gives crit rate. Good crit rate, balances out your stats. It increases your elemental skill, elemental burst damage passively, so it is kind of like stringless. And then you gain stacks which increase your attack. When a normal charge attack, elemental skill, or elemental burst hits an opponent, you gain stacks. So normal attacks with support Fischl, you don't use them that much. Charge attacks, you don't use them with both physical damage Fischl and support Fischl. Elemental skill, you always use it. Elemental burst, you always use it with both sides. So you can max gain 2 to 3 stacks. 2 with a normal support Fischl, 3 with a physical damage Fischl. Each stack will increase your attack, which goes fine also in a support Fischl, and on a physical damage Fischl is fine. The bow was made for child. Fischl can somewhat use it. It can be a bit hard, but it's fine. As said, I do not know if Oz snapshots, so you might not be able to fully utilize Polar Star. You might only be able to utilize 1 or 2 stacks max. So yeah, it's fine. I would grab Skyward Harp more on support or damage Fischl, or Amos's bow, which are not limited weapons as well. Polar Star is a limited weapon on the weapons banner, while Skyward Harp and Amos's bow can be both had from losing your PT on the weapons banner or the standard banner, of course. But yeah, like support Fischl, once again, stringless can be better than the Polar Star, and for physical damage Fischl, some other weapons can provide better stats more easily as well. And that is it for Fischl. So she can fit 2 roles very well. She's a very good Electro support, but with the situation that Electro is right now, she does get points reducted for that. As for physical damage, she's very much fine. Not as good, of course, as Eula, fine enough like Razor, and yeah, just fine. She's Electro, so she can easily proc Superconduct, and yeah, I mean that's mainly the only reason why physical damage Fischl is a thing, because of the easiness of proccing Superconduct, and also the compound bow increases attack speed, which is basically the only weapon easily accessible that increases attack speed, and attack speed is a very rare stat to see in Genshin Impact. So because Fischl is like the only physical DPS bow user, compound bow really goes well, and that's where the build started, where the roots of a physical Fischl come from. But in general, in conclusion, she's pretty fine. I use her here and there if I need some extra off-field electro, and yeah, I think she's pretty much fine. So then, that is it from me. Our next character is either Jin Yan or Ning Yan. I'll see you then.